Sefogah is here with us. So, I mean, you are in practice, you've been in practice for a very long time now. Before we get into everything, from all these years of practice, what would you say is the most critical but often ignored health issue that you see in the Ghanaian woman today?
Yeah. I mean, I even wish you said what are, but you said what is.
Okay,
so I
what
have
are?
to, yes, because, but largely, it's the issue of women's mental health, and particularly mental health challenges related to reproductive function. So what we call reproductive mental health. That's a big issue affecting our women in Ghana, but underreported, underdiagnosed, little known about by larger society, and hence a lot goes untreated. And then the consequences are dire for the woman, the family, society, and the national productivity.
What's the cause of these reproductive mental health issues? What's the challenge?
So take, for instance, infertility. WHO tells us that 1 out of every 6 to 7 couples would have difficulty getting pregnant. In Ghana, a lot of the time, a couple is unable to conceive. Everybody looks to the woman. Whilst in effect, theoretically, we're told that in 30% is the woman alone, in 30% is the man alone, in 30% is both of them, in 10% we are not sure. But locally, some local data we've even found, we realize that up to 70% of couples that are struggling to conceive, the issue really has to do with the man.
Please reiterate that point.
Yes. Local data we found says that in up to 70% of couples struggling to conceive, the men are the cause of the problem. Unfortunately, our society tends to, confer some cultural diplomatic immunity on the men. And so everybody's pointing to the woman. And the woman is going through a lot. Mind you, the way a woman's body works is such that today her menstrual flow begins, the hormone levels are rising. Around the middle of the cycle, another hormone drops, another one keeps going. So she's dealing with this internal milieu of up and down hormones, which naturally are supposed to be disturbing her mood and well-being. That is a normal physiological thing. And on top of that, we are piling this unnecessary societal pressures. Then the issue of the woman eventually gets pregnant. Mental health, mood. The pregnant woman is processing a lot of anxiety in her. From things as trivial as, would my baby really look like me or like my husband? If it's a female, will she have hair? Is the baby formed well? Is the baby okay in there? The woman is processing and dealing with all these things alongside the natural hormonal changes up and down. Eventually, she delivers, hormone levels drop suddenly. And depending on her vulnerability, she's tipped into postpartum depression. Again, you know how mental health issues are badly stigmatized. So the woman is very apathetic. She doesn't want to bond with the baby. A few days ago, one of my patients, she didn't want to see the baby. That's just it. And then she goes home. Everybody thinks, you've delivered and we're happy for you. And look how you're very flat and unresponsive to us. It is not her. There's something going on. Unfortunately, we worsen it by ignoring them, being more negative rather than being a lot more supportive. And it goes on and goes on and goes on, and it gets so severe in some situations they are tempted to do self-harm. And we're told that 20% of all death in women after delivery globally is from suicide. And suicide is a reflection of severe depression. Here in Ghana, typically when we look after you after delivery, 6 weeks, you are usually discharged from follow-up. And only God knows what happens to the woman after that. And then if somebody loses a pregnancy, pregnancy loss is such a big deal, but we seem to just gloss over it. Another one will come, okay, and that's it. No, it comes with a lot of mental health challenge for the woman. Deals with their emotions. They are wondering, why is it that I cannot carry, particularly if it is repetitive? Why is it just I alone? I'm going through this. And then when a woman transitions into menopause, that transition, it's crazy.
We need to talk about that transition, and we'll talk about that shortly. But before we get into the transitioning into menopause, it's important we look at what the health priorities of women should be. Say, for that person who's listening to us and is currently in her 20s, what should be her health priorities?
So, in your 20s, your health priorities should largely be around sexual and reproductive health. You need to understand or acquire health literacy. You need to learn things about menstruation, your menstrual cycle. What is normal? How is my own? What are the problems with mine that I need to report early? Things about a common thing like vaginal discharge. A lot of women downplay vaginal discharge. And so this is what happens. The vagina produces some secretions. That is how it works. And for it to be normal, it should be clear or just cloudy. Anything apart from that is abnormal. If it is colored, if it is so much that it wets your underpants, if it is offensive, it is causing some irritation, there is a problem. But unfortunately, a lot of women ignore the abnormal discharge or go and get some over-the-counter preparation for themselves. Unfortunately, these discharges could be indicating a more severe underlying problem, which could potentially damage the woman's tubes and lead to infertility in the future. If it damages the tube completely, the tube is blocked, and so the tube cannot have access for the egg and the sperm to meet. If it damages it partially, the tube is partially damaged, the egg can squeeze past somewhere, the sperm can squeeze past somewhere, it forms a pregnancy, but the pregnancy is stuck in the tube. That's what we call ectopic pregnancy. And it's a life-threatening thing because the tube is not as tough to carry pregnancy. And so 6, 7, 8 weeks of the pregnancy, then it will burst with the woman bleeding internally. And whether she survives or not is determined by how soon she gets into hospital, gets into surgery to go stop the bleeding. And look at how our setup is in Ghana. This thing happens to you in the eastern side of Accra on a Wednesday or a Friday afternoon. You have to deal with traffic to get to the nearest center. We can have access to surgery. You're bleeding and you need access to blood and blood products are not the most readily available things in our country. These are the issues. And so things about your menstrual health, vaginal discharge is important that you don't joke with in your 20s. Again, screening. You're supposed to have made your first gynecological visit in your early 20s. You see?
Why is that important?
I mean, it's important because you don't need to wait till you are unwell before you see the gynae. When you come for that well visit, we talk about how your menstrual cycles are working. Are you really ovulating or you're not? Do you have a place or a need for contraception? Because unfortunately in our country, nearly 50% of pregnancies are not planned or are not prepared for. That's about 1 in 2. And so if we have this we call it annual well woman visit, then we can talk through some of these things and then work with you on your reproductive planning. Things like cervical cancer screening and prevention of sexually transmitted infection, which is a big problem. There is a notorious virus called HPV, human papillomavirus, and that coincidentally is the commonest sexually transmitted virus. And that again is the virus responsible for more than 99% of cervical cancer cases. So this virus is passed on sexually. Now we are even learning that even men are suffering from this virus. Unfortunately, it's affecting the men, causing a lot of throats and the back of the nose. We call it nasopharyngeal cancers in youngish men. Notorious virus. For which, so your well woman visit, we'll talk through these things, talk through screening for cervical cancer, talk through vaccination. Fortunately, now we have the vaccine in place, which we're actually even promoting that the men should get vaccinated based on what we're seeing, And then are there concerns about you not ovulating? Is it due to some hormonal issues? Then we talk through all these to make sure, okay, we need to work on this, you need to work on your weight, do this, sexual function, and then that's good. Once a year, that's more than enough.
Okay.
It also gives us the opportunity to start talking about breast screening towards breast cancer prevention, because we know early prevention is the key for all the cancers.
Sure.
right? Good. Then in the 30s, shall I?
Continue.
Winston, today you are not taking notes. Have you stopped being a good student?
I'm taking notes on my phone.
Good, good. And in your head as well.
Yes.
So in the 30s, a woman's reproductive function or fertility function is sharpest between the age of 20 to 30. So the women are most fertile within that age bracket. So from 30, your fertility function begins to go down, which is why we advise that ideally every woman should have finished having babies by age 35. You know, it's always a difficult thing to say, but it has to be said. Unfortunately, we see a lot of our women delaying childbirth for very good reasons, but probably misplaced, because our women are delaying childbirth because they want to advance academic career professionally, which are great things, because we are waiting for women to become the big managers of our economy, and then president, and then AU, WHO, director general, all of that. But the reproductive function cannot wait, because what happens is every woman, the baby girl, is born with a set number of eggs she arrives with. Okay, she arrives with approximately 2 million eggs already preformed in her ovaries, and then a lot of them would die off between birth till she attains puberty. At puberty, she's left with about 500,000 eggs, and of that, every month she recruits about 10 to 20, and out of that, the best develops to get ovulated, potentially available to be fertilized. The remaining 10 to 19, they die off. Next month, another 10 to 20 is recruited. The one is ovulated, the rest die off. Next month. And so as she's growing and aging month on, she's losing her number of eggs, as well as the quality of the eggs. Fortunately, the two of you are farmers, so you see lots of eggs. Fresh egg versus chicken egg, and then the pig farm there, you don't see eggs.
No,
the eggs are inside.
Yeah.
I need to come and scan the
You
pig.
see the litter.
You see the litter. Good, you. So then we are losing both the number of eggs as well as the quality of the eggs. And so after age 35, natural conception potentially becomes a challenge. If pregnancy happens at that stage as well, the likelihood of miscarriages are higher, because the eggs are not great, so the babies do not form well. It's likely nature would stop it from growing. They'll miscarry. Some still carry it, but the pregnancy has a tendency to have complications like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, what we call diabetes in pregnancy, or gestational diabetes, and stuff like that. Pregnancy tends to have more complications if it is later on than if it is earlier. So in that 30s, those are the things. How do I have safe pregnancy? How do I space my pregnancy and my children? And then birth planning in general, family planning, what will work for me, what will not work for me. And then mental health issues, particularly during pregnancy and after delivery. In the 30s, these are the priorities. And you should be able to note these and report them. Then screening for what we call chronic medical problems. We've been talking about diabetes, hypertension. So we want to know your numbers, your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, and then your weight as against your height. How are you doing? Then we can counsel you. Let's drop this a little bit. Avoid salt, minimize A, minimize B. Then we are pushing you to develop healthy lifestyles into the future. Then things like the cervical cancer screening, breast cancer screening, still a big issue even in your 30s. Because unfortunately, we are beginning to see aggressive, advanced breast cancers in women in their 30s. And that's a big problem. It's such a shift in our part of the world. And even cervical cancer, advanced cervical cancer. We grade cancer stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Stage 4 is terminal, really. Stage 3 is far advanced that we cannot do surgery and remove anything. It's beginning to spread already. Stage 1, we can do something about. We do surgery, then we add chemo or some form of radiation to kill the rest of the cancer cell. So that early detection at all costs is the key. So your breast screening, cervical cancer screening, and then things like your cervical cancer vaccination also comes in. There is a very silent big problem called intimate partner violence. Okay? And 1 out of 3 women are suffering this in Ghana.
Tell us more about that.
Yes. Partners abusing the spouses. The abuse is emotional, is verbal, financial, and physical. And lots of women, unfortunately, are suffering these abuses in silence. 1 out of 3, about 33%. And so when you prioritize your health and you do your regular wellness visit, these are the things we talk about and point you to what we can do to help you. Because these abuses have the tendency to add on to the mental health problems the woman is already going through, particularly the women who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. Now, we also have concerns about the cancer and then diabetes and the hypertension in the 30s, infertility and its treatment. So that if you are approaching the 35 mark we spoke about and you don't see yourself settling to start having family, then things like what we call fertility preservation can be brought onto the table for discussion, where we put you on some injections so that instead of you developing or recruiting 1 egg, ovulating 1 egg a cycle, we have a good number out that would have gone waste. We have them all develop and we take them out and then we freeze. Okay. So when we do this, when you are 34, 35, or even before, the eggs are younger, they are of better quality. So if you want to go on and finish all your academic, professional pursuits till you are into your late 40s, you have eggs that are much younger and of better quality for us to use to help you conceive healthier babies of your own.
Great. I mean, and talking about when you grew older, you want to finish your academic pursuit and everything, you lead me to conversation about women approaching menopause and the health screenings that become critical as they get to that stage.
Yeah. So the menopause is that transition where the woman's egg reserves are now depleted. So we started with 2 million, we got 500,000, we're losing 10 to 20 monthly. It gets to a point that it's all done, it's finished. And so where the eggs are stored in the woman's body is called the ovary. The ovary, apart from the egg, also produces an important hormone called estrogen. You have to say that one after me.
Estrogen.
Again.
Estrogen.
Good. I won't ask you to spell it. So then, from about age 45, generally, the estrogen levels begin to decline to the extent that, 1, the menstrual regularity begins to suffer. So, every woman normally is supposed to have 9 to 12 menstrual cycles in a year. So, from 45, the average woman's cycle numbers will begin to reduce because the months may start skipping. This month she doesn't get, 2 months she gets, 3 months she doesn't get, like that. That is what we call the perimenopausal transition. And that is because the egg levels have dropped. It becomes more difficult to conceive at that stage. The estrogen is what really gives the woman all the feminine feeling and characteristics. It starts to rise when the girl child reaches puberty. So that helps them develop the breast, all the feminine curves we see. So at that transition, the estrogen levels have begun to reduce. But mind you, the woman's body for all these years has been used to high levels of estrogen. So the body now has to readjust itself to cope with the low levels of estrogen. And that is the challenge. A bit of mood swings, low energy, and the commonest is what they call the hot flashes, where the estrogen also helps the body to regulate its temperature internally, but low levels affect that temperature regulation, and so the body suddenly throws out heat. So the woman described it as though I was thrown into an oven suddenly.
Yeah, you hear that?
Yes. I'm sitting in a trotro as if I should take off my clothes. And these are real. Okay. Unfortunately, the awareness is extremely low that a lot of our people, being spiritual as we are, we think it's somebody doing us. and then the husband does not understand what the wife is going through. Sexual drive is low, interest in things are really low, but instead of being supportive, we are flaring at them. Why are you the only woman? What is this? Productivity is low. If such a woman is a front desk or works in a place where she's dealing with your client, you can imagine. So those are the things that will tell us that we are in the perimenopausal transition. There is a place for counseling, for the woman to just understand what she's really going through. Some time ago, a women's fellowship, a prayer session, they were binding menopause. Winston. Of course.
They were binding it.
Of course.
Really?
Yes.
I thought we only bind principles. How do we bind?
Should I tell you a story? Should I tell you a story?
Tell me.
So there was a woman in our house, compound house, back in Ijazongo, and she had reached the menopausal stage. And I remember church people coming to pray for her. You did two menopause. No,
Thank you. Winston, so that's how bad it is. Just because we lack the awareness. We lack the awareness. So if the woman would only be able to understand what her body is going through, and the husband understands it, and the children understand it, because that's the stage where most of the children have grown and they've left them. They are not really there with them. So the woman is mostly stuck with the husband, and she goes through this transition between the age of 45 to 55. It can go on for a couple of years until the body has readjusted and now able to cope with daily functions with a low level of estrogen. Okay, so when you're at that stage, your periods are getting irregular, you're skipping your menses, you are feeling low in energy, there's low sexual drive, you need to step up. There is help. So we need to prioritize this. You see, because when the sexual drive, for instance, is low, it takes all the advantages of the good quality sexual intimacy away. And good sexual intimacy has gross advantages. Your heart works better. Your cardiovascular health is up. Your immunity is improved. Your alertness, mental, cognitive function is good. Okay, it promotes sleep. You are a better human being, generally, as far as your function is concerned. And so if you take the advantage of all this, the woman is also crampy and then, irritable, and doesn't help.
Okay.
Just because she's going through that menopausal transition, and her husband does not know what she's going through to be able to offer that support. The employer doesn't know to be able to support her.
I mean, you talk about something which is very, very important, and so husbands would have to learn more about that. Employers would also have to do so, and even colleagues at work.
Yeah.
Because you need to understand at that point why your colleague is behaving that way. Before we go for a break, this one says, Doc, Joe in Accra says, Doc, I have a friend who married 5 years ago without giving birth. According to her doctors say nothing is wrong with her, and same with her husband. However, the husband went outside the marriage and gave birth with another woman. So where does the problem really come from?
So this is a typical social story. But the plain truth is, can Joe confirm if the child is for the husband?
Good question.
So it is often that, you see, I told you 10% of the case of infertility, we say it's unexplained. We're not able to find the exact cause because everything appears normal. So the fact that we cannot find the cause, we will give you time. If it does not work, there are medications, there are interventions. If nothing else works, then we have what we call the assisted reproductive technology, IVF, where we now have to take the woman's egg out, take the sperm, form the pregnancy, and then put it back in the womb for the woman. And that's an intervention for unexplained infertility. So it is not uncommon that you've done all the checks, both of you are confirmed okay, but it's not happening. It is known medically that there could be situations like that, but most importantly, there is solution for it.
Great. Still live here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. And the focus today is on women's health, and Dr. Sefogah is here with us. He's consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and reproductive medicine specialist, Shape Healthcare Specialist Medical Center, and senior lecturer, University of Ghana Medical School, and vice president of the Fertility Society of Ghana. So the phone lines have been activated on 0302 216 541, 0302216541, and then 05511119997, 05511119997. This one says, can the doc explain what ovarian rejuvenation is? Yes, Dr. Sefogah.
Yeah, great. So ovarian rejuvenation is a new emerging concept where some group of specialists think that if we take a bit of your blood, remove the cells, and inject the rest of the fluid into your ovary, it has a tendency to make you get more eggs than your labs are showing you have. It's largely experimental at this stage. If you take 100 gynecologists across the world, 50% would say yes, we believe in it, another 50 will say no, we don't. So it's largely experimental. There isn't a compelling, rigorous research evidence to say yes, it works or does not work based on what we know. So that is what ovarian rejuvenation is about.
Okay. Now, Efua from Osu says, Doc, is it the act of sex which brings about the advantages of a good sex, or it is the climax which brings relief to the woman's well-being?
Great question. So good quality sexual intimacy with orgasm is equal to all the things I said. Because that brings the other issue of a lot of our women who are not actually able to attain orgasm, to the extent that some have never attained orgasm and they do not know. Right. So you need good quality sexual intimacy that attains orgasm. For both the man and the woman, they get all these benefits.
Okay. This one says, I have very low sex drive. I'm 48. What can I do to boost it?
Good. So at 48, that is expected, or that is not unexpected. So it could be that the estrogen levels are declining. It could be stress from work, stress from every other thing, the so-called midlife crisis. So seek help. There's certainly a way. Sometimes you need a bit of psychological therapy. Sometimes you need some supplements. Sometimes you need some hormonal medication. But at all costs, seek help. There is help.
Let's talk about fibroids. We're told more than half of the Ghanaian women would have fibroid at some point in time. What are they? I mean, what really are fibroids?
Yeah. So fibroids, I was going to bring that chart to show you the picture of fibroids. They are just abnormal growth that affect the womb of the woman. Okay. So it's one of the cells that make the womb begins to multiply out of control, multiplies, and then it forms a lump. Another one here, another one here, another one here. So they tend to move in multiples. The exact cause, we are still researching into it. But we know a few things that contribute to it. For instance, being a black woman puts you at a very high risk of developing fibroids compared to the whites. But the white also have their own issue, things that are more common there, like the prolapse of the uterus, where after 40, 50 years, the womb is sagging out down the vagina because they don't have as much connective tissue, which we have in excess, which is resulting in the fibroids in some extent. When a woman is obese, she tends to produce a lot more of estrogen, and this estrogen is what the fibroids feed on. Okay, so obesity can increase the risk of fibroids. When the uterus is there without carrying pregnancy, then the estrogen levels are just going on and the fibroid keeps increasing and growing. So if the womb has not been pregnant, so when you get pregnant, the 9 months of pregnancy breaks the cycle a bit, and so that reduces the ability, the tendency of the fibroids. Somehow, when somebody already had fibroids and they manage to get pregnant, because during pregnancy, the body channels a lot of blood to the uterus to take care of the baby and the placenta. The fibroids also parasite on that blood and also are likely to grow bigger during pregnancy. And then a lot of animal products consumption has also been linked to the risk of developing fibroids. So even though we don't know the exact cause, we know some of the factors. And it tends to also be familiar. There's a genetic component to it, which is why if this woman has it, her daughter is more likely to have it than somebody's daughter if the mom did not have.
Okay. But are there some lifestyle choices that also increase the risk of getting fibroids?
Yes, a lot of animal food consumption, animal products, meat, red meat, a lot of that increase the risk. And then if you maintain a healthier BMI is the body mass index. When we check your height versus your weight, you're supposed to be within a particular category. If it is higher, it means you're heavier than you're supposed to be. You know, being obese increases the risk. So whatever we can do to prevent being obese will reduce the risk of fibroids.
Okay.
Lately, we are learning that hypertension in women is related to the risk of fibroids. You know, and so every good thing we can do to prevent hypertension indirectly would also help minimize the risk of fibroid. Minimize the amount of salt. Salt is a great enemy. The physicians were here, they told us about it. Salt. If you cut salt to the barest minimum, we reduce the risk of hypertension or improve blood pressure control significantly. So we say no household should have table salt in their table. No.
Okay. Good point. This message says, I'm 32 years, not married with no child. Most often I experience sharp pains from my abdomen and it distracts me a lot. Now, since I don't have the means of doing all the checkups you've just mentioned of, please, I need your advice. Should I get pregnant?
Of course, I would say yes, if that's just the question. Get pregnant. Because if you would keep waiting until everything becomes ideal, okay, before you get pregnant, versus if you got pregnant now when things are not ideal, which of these two scenarios would lead to regret? The former one. Because you have said you don't have the means. If you wait till into your 40s, you are going to need a lot more resources to help you get pregnant. Yeah. So a lot of the checks, you can go into your regular clinic, hospital, and get checked. Your blood pressure, have a scan, some hormonal tests, and some of this you can do with your health insurance. So it shouldn't be as that costly that the cost should be a barrier. Okay. At all costs, you need to get checked.
Great. Now, this message says, good morning, Winston. The hot flashes are very real, but a bit easier if you're pre-informed and well-educated about this stage of menopause.
Absolutely the point I've been making. Awareness. So everybody should join us to create awareness in the church, in the women's groups, in the mosque, wherever. PTA groups, let's talk about it. And then people who are going through, they find some validation hearing others talk about it. Then they say, oh, okay, then I'm not alone in this at all. After all, how did you cope? And then we share ideas and the professionals talk you through. So awareness is a big part of helping the women cope better.
Great. Now, someone sent us a message that great presentation, Dr. Sefogah. I was at his hospital last year and grateful he detected cancer after screening. Oh, okay.
We thank God.
Okay. Good job you're doing there.
Thank you.
But you can also join us on WhatsApp 055-1111-997. I can understand many of you prefer to send messages on these issues instead of calling in to ask the questions. But talking about the fibroid, you say eating red meat is a major problem. And you realize that hypertension also, increases one's risk of having that. How about diabetes?
And so there is no direct link between diabetes and a fibroid. But some of the causes of diabetes, for instance, some condition in women we call polycystic ovarian syndrome, that increase the risk of diabetes, then that can also cause the obesity. And so there's some insulin-related challenges, and that can also be pushed towards it. But directly, no. But of course, don't leave the whole thing for the woman, because the red meat is also a problem when it comes to the prostate cancer in men.
The red meat itself is a problem.
It is.
But Doc, since you're talking about red meat, help us understand what is red meat before you go, because a lot of people Some people would say, "Oh, this is red meat. This is white meat. This is what. This is what." And people have found ways of, excluding what they prefer
For their convenience. Right. Yes, I mean, so red meat is meat that looks red. So compared to that which looks white. So the birds are largely white. Unlike the four-legged animals.
So some people say bush meat is good. They say bush meat. So
Yes, because
regular,
bush meat. Yes, because they hardly have a lot of fat. The stradinam is a big part of the problem in the red meat. So chicken, the turkey, the duck, those are preferred. Fish is great. Egg without a yolk is good.
But how can I have egg without a yolk?
At what age?
So we say that for an adult, you don't need more than 3 eggs in a week, because the yolk tends to be very rich in cholesterol. So if you are doing more than 3, then the rest, boil it and take out the yolk. It's just in your mind that you think the yolk is the tastiest, but
one we enjoy,
in promoting health, you have to make some sacrifice.
Okay, this one,
says
says
the bushmeat bit. We need to be careful, because the hunters and the people who catch the bushmeat, they use all sorts of means to get them. Some are poisoned, some are endangered species, and so bushmeat may be leaner or something, but let's just be careful.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Dr. Promise Sefogah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. But of course, tomorrow
is fertility day.
clinic. Just that, so we can have all the conversations about fertility.
Fertility is not only for the woman.
No,
it's both sides.
Both sides.
Yes.
And the in-laws.
It's for the in-laws too.
Of course.
Yeah, they've been giving the problem.
Yes.
They've been calling
A lot.
anytime it's official New Year. Official parties is saying now.
Menana ba.
If you have one, I feel near the back one. If you have 2 and they want 3, I feel near the back one.
When I got married, I called my side of the family, called my wife's side, and I told them that anybody who asks my wife when we are going to have children or puts pressure on my wife, I'll cut them off.